Hey, thanks for clicking on my video. About a month ago, I finally reached Master Rank in Street Fighter 6. Hey, shut up! People don't give a shit! Now this may seem like a pretty simple achievement, but as someone who is just starting to get competitive in fighting games,
it's a milestone.
For about the last year of my life, my brain has been almost completely devoted to fighting games, and I've learned a lot over that time. So today, I want to share some of what I've learned with those of you who may be struggling to improve in Street Fighter 6 or maybe some other fighting game. Obviously, I'm no professional, but hopefully the perspective of someone who has just gone through a lot of what you're probably going through is worthwhile. That's a hope anyway. I don't know, kick it! Let's start the party! In baseball, not a fighting game, I know, before anything else can occur, the pitcher must throw the ball to the hitter in a place where he can reasonably hit it, which is called the strike zone. But they do so in an attempt to make the batter whiff. If he does, or just stares at the ball as it goes through the strike zone, it's called a strike. However, if the ball did not enter the strike zone and the batter did not swing, it's called a ball. This minigame ends when the score reaches 3 strikes, 4 balls, or the batter smacks the living hell out of the thing. Pitchers get up to all kinds of tricks to win this little game. They throw pitches that move in weird directions, they weave in and out of the strike zone, they throw pitches at varying speeds, all sorts of things. And the batter is constantly trying to figure out how to hit whatever it is the pitcher's gonna throw. And thus, the two are constantly in a sort of mind game within the larger game of baseball. In much the same way, players in a fighting game are constantly involved in this game within the game. The goal is to deplete the opponent's health, yes. But it's how you get that first hit that really matters, and both players are constantly tricking each other in order to do so. Especially as beginners, we tend to think of mind games and counterplay when we're outside of the match, but then resort to our most flowcharty, autopiloted game plan the second there is actually an opponent in front of us. Remember that there is always another human being on the other side of the screen, so pay attention to them. Understanding what your opponent wants to do is the most important step in figuring out a way to beat them. This is at the center of neutral, and footsies are really just this in its truest form. Truly amazing players will spend the whole game just seeing how you react to certain situations. Maybe they'll whiff a button in neutral, or take a kind of risky step forward just to see how you're going to react to that situation. Doing that specifically is incredibly difficult to do, especially when you're just starting out. But that doesn't mean that you can't use this concept to your advantage. So to begin implementing this into your gameplay, you can just start with what they're doing on Wake Up. Getting up from a knockdown, or wake up, is one of the most vulnerable states in the game, because you're unable to act for quite a while and your opponent can do really whatever the hell they want. And as I'm sure you're aware, a common reaction to this situation is to use an invincible reversal like an ODDP or a super to kind of force your way out. However, these are also the most punishable attacks in the game. Let's say you're facing Cammy and you throw her near the corner, so you dash up to begin a little pressure, but she uses the OD cannon spike to go right through you. Take a note of that. Say it out loud if you have to. Anything you need to do to make sure that the next time she's getting up, you are prepared for that OD cannon spike. Fake an approach, and then block instead. This is what's commonly referred to as a shimmy. If they try it again, you will block it, and then you can perform your nastiest combo for a boatload more damage than she would have done to get out. Then if they don't reversal out again, make a note of that too. This is someone who's not afraid to use the OD to get out, but they're also not spamming it at every opportunity. They're playing the game within the game. So what did they do instead? Did they jump? Did they press a button? Or maybe they just sat there and blocked or parried or whatever. Whichever it is, there's always going to be an option to beat it. And as the person on offense, you are at the advantage. The most common way to pressure your opponent is to use a meaty button. Meaty is the term for when an attack's active frames are on your opponent at the very first frame they're vulnerable. Doing this successfully will stuff any normal they mash, any attempt to jump, or even just give you a little extra advantage on block, allowing you to continue your pressure. This is of course what the invincible reversal is designed to beat, but if you stopped a couple of those, they'll be a lot less likely to do it again. And even if they do, you just get a fatter punish next time. Of course, meaty buttons are also susceptible to perfect parries, and as I'm sure you know, throwing them there will give you a punish counter throw, which does a lot of extra damage. It's also still worth it to throw your opponent even if they aren't parrying, because it simply resets the situation while giving you a little bit extra damage. And of course, throw loops exist in this game, which means you can meaty a throw to still stuff any sort of button, but the jump out is still going to be successful on their part. If you've done this quite a bit, they might start teching your throws, which you can actually bait out and punish with that same shimmy from before. Shimmies also beat an attempt to jump out as long as you can anti-air fast enough. Once you understand this intricate game of rock, paper, scissors on Wake Up, You'll start to notice that this sort of situation happens a lot in the rest of neutral. Maybe one day you cancel into a drive rush from a normal, and you go for a throw but they tech it, and then next time you do that exact same thing, except you shimmy at the end of the drive rush and you get that punish. That's improvement, and the most satisfying feeling of it all is when you win a situation that you haven't been consistently winning before. I mentioned it a little before, but keep in mind that your opponent is always playing this little game with you. Pay close attention to their attempts to pressure you. What options are they choosing? And in other words, what are they expecting you to do? Maybe you've noticed they have a tendency to shimmy you, and you just recently teched a throw, which means they're probably going to try and do it again. Then when you wake up, you start with a crouch medium kick, and boom, you're out of there. This is a skill no one has ever finished improving. It's game sense, and the only way to improve your game sense is through continuous, conscious gameplay. Okay, this one may seem obvious, but I cannot stress enough how important it is that your hands are able to do what you need to do when you need to do it. The point of this section, however, is not to say that you need to be able to do the most complicated combos for your character in order to be successful. In fact, I'd say it's much better to be able to do a simple combo much more consistently. And consistently is really the most important word in that sentence. The way fighting games are designed, particularly if you're playing with motion inputs, you're probably never going to get what you're trying to do 100% of the time, every single time you try it. But ideally, your conscious brain is focusing on that game within the game, while your subconscious brain is doing everything your hands need to do. This is why you see high-level players stick to their main character even if they have a technical character disadvantage. It's a lot more valuable to have that muscle memory than it is to just technically be in a proper advantage. The best way to get consistent with these combos is obviously training mode. Every player experiences that moment where we've been practicing a combo in training mode and we're getting it every time and we feel good about it, and then we go into a match and we cannot hit it for the life of us. We've all been there, so if you're feeling it, don't let it discourage you. You're not doomed to be dog shit at the game, you're not worse than everyone else, in fact, you're just like all of us. A lot of times it's the pressure of having a real life person in front of you that makes it really hard to perform these combos, so maybe take the pressure off a little bit, maybe do some casual matches. You don't need to be in ranked all the time. Also, if the combo you're trying to hit is a particularly difficult one, but it does a lot of damage or something, make sure you know the risk and reward of using that combo. A lot of the strategy in fighting games actually comes from knowing how to choose your combo. Like for instance, you're at pretty low health and your opponent is at pretty high health. In that situation, it's probably a lot better to not take the risk of trying the hard combo, because if you miss it, you probably lose the round. And now you're in a position where doing the hard combo the second time is probably going to win you the match. There's actually a term for this, and it's called the tournament combo, the easy, reliable combo that will get you through any situation. Another use for training mode is drilling the fundamentals. Street Fighter 6 in particular has some easily accessed training situations where you can spend some time to make your actions a little snappier. It's also very worth investing in the recording feature so you can drill specific situations you're struggling with. But I find the reversal features work pretty well for most of the simple stuff. For examples, I use the recording feature, especially for like checking drive rush practice. I'll have Jury walk back and forth and then drive rush at a random moment so I can try and react to it. But then I use the reversal features when I'm trying to like drill corner pressure, you know? I'll throw the dummy into the corner, and if it's set to reversal jump forward, do a DI, whiff a throw, or even just stand there and block, I train myself to properly react to that situation after I shimmy them on wake up. This is actually one of the best possible drills I could have run for myself because I play Rashid, and a lot of his character is based around getting them into the corner and fucking them up while they're there. My point is, don't slack on your training. It may seem boring sometimes, and sometimes you do just want to jump into matches, but it feels good to have like 10 to 20 minutes at the beginning of any session where I'm just drilling my hands, working on things I know I struggle with so that I can get into the game feeling warmed up and ready to go. The best thing you can do for yourself is watch some high-level gameplay of your character and take some notes. No joke, I have a list on my phone that is comedically large of Rashid notes. Here, you know what? Fuck it, let me grab my phone. My lighting's gonna be shittier for a second. Here, look. Seeing this? Can you see this? Yeah. And that's just Rashid. For Rashid, I watch JB. He's by far my favorite Rashid player. But there's also like Gotcha-kun, who is in Capcom Cup. There's Big Bird, there's Oil King, all these other people. I just watch their matches, and anytime I see something I didn't know you could do, I write it down. Then at the start of my next session, I look over my recent notes, and I practice up on what I saw and try and implement it into my gameplay a little bit during that session. Honestly, not everything like stays in my gameplay as like a core thing that I do, but it's cool to have like this wide variety of things that I know how to do so that I can whip out anything that may work at any given moment. Expand your horizons. I also recommend you keep those notes organized, as you may have seen mine work, because like sometimes you fall into a rut and you don't really know how to beat a certain situation and you feel like, man, I used to know how to do that. And then you look through your notes and you're like, oh yeah, there's a note here for that. Next thing, know your frame data, particularly that of your characters, but especially certain tools of other characters. If you don't know that Kevin, I said Kevin yesterday too. If you don't know that Ken's Heavy Dragon Lash or Cammy's Heavy Spin Knuckle are plus on block, you're probably gonna eat a shit ton of counter hit combos from it. Real life example, at one point I was getting pissed because I couldn't punish a goddamn blocked drive reversal for the life of me. Then I got fed up, looked at the frame data, and found out that it's -8 on block, and this whole time I've been trying to punish it with Rashid's Heavy Punch, which is a 9-frame move, and yeah, that shit doesn't work. But I know that now, and almost every single drive reversal I've blocked since, I've punished properly with Medium Punch into Heavy Punch into whatever the fuck. I'm not saying you need to go through every character and like download into your brain every single bit of frame data, but I am saying that if you're blocking Jury sweeping like 20 times in a row, check the frame data, see if you can punish that shit. Guess what? You can. Finally, watch your replays. This one sucks and I'm still not very good at it, but it is important to know your own weaknesses as a player. There's this great European player, his name is Broski, and he has a really great video on like how to watch your replays. Watch the replay and write down every single time you get hit, and when you start seeing that you're writing the same thing down over and over again, maybe that's what you should work on. It's also really helpful for just seeing what mistakes you make in neutral, like if you're overextending or you're not taking advantage of a particular opportunity, you can see that a lot better outside of the moment. Think about the amount of times that you've been watching a pro match and being like, oh man, why didn't they just do this here? It's because of the heat of the moment. You're stupid, you wouldn't have done it either. Pro players make a lot of mistakes too. It's a lot easier to notice those mistakes when you're not in the game and you're on the outside looking in. If you do that with yourself, you'll see a lot of the dumb shit you do. Personally, I like to watch like a mix of wins and losses because like it's kind of fun to watch yourself beat ass sometimes. And it's not like you've ever played a game where you played 100% perfectly in every single situation. So there's always something you can learn. Okay, this last thing is probably the most important thing in the video, especially to me personally, so fair warning, I'm about to get somewhat personal. If you're that friend that really likes playing fighting games, but you get really angry when you lose, you feel like you're putting in a bunch of effort and not really getting anywhere, if you've started to feel genuinely shitty about who you are and what you can do as a person, you're not alone in that. I'm that person too. And honestly, maybe to like the most dramatic degree possible. Or at least I was. I've been playing fighting games to some extent since I was pretty young. And more importantly, I've been getting my ass beat in fighting games for just as long. Because honestly, at my core, I am god awful at video games. I spent years where I would lose, go home, practice for a bunch of hours, try and get better, come back, lose over and over again, and then go home, and then try again, and yeah, it was on and on, forever and ever. Whether it was Smash, Dragon Ball, Naruto, Ultimate Ninja Storm for the PS2, or like Street Fighter or something, it was always the same story. And as a kid, I would lash out, I'd get physical, violent even. I would say some of the most horrendous things and make a complete fool of myself. And then people would say, or I would think to myself, it's just a video game. There's no need to be upset. But a lot of times that just made it worse because I felt upset that I was so upset and I couldn't help being upset. So I'd get more upset that I was upset, and then I'd get more upset that I was upset, and once again, so on and so on. And that attitude stuck with me until pretty recently. Now, in my older years, the violence definitely toned down. I'd sometimes get like physical or whatever, or overreact about a certain situation, but I played it for laughs most of the time rather than as just a release of this deep inner rage. But even if I was playing it for laughs and I started laughing too, there was always this sense on the inside that I was worthless. So my very first tip in this section is if you are feeling like that, take a step back, take a few days off, whatever you need. It's not worth it to keep playing in that mindset. And I know this because I have pushed myself to actual legitimate panic attacks. Yeah, I wish I were kidding. So if any of that sounds relatable, know that it can get better. Personally, my complete change of heart came not that long ago. I had just worked like a bunch of really long shifts, and I was very tired. I hadn't been sleeping well the previous nights, but it was a birthday party for one of my friends, so I went over to their place, and we did all the birthday stuff, gave gifts, had cake. It was great. Had a great time. And then I had the brilliant idea to play some Street Fighter 3 Third Strike, which is a game I do have experience with. Walking into it, I knew that I was very tired and that I was probably not going to be playing all that well. But I was not as prepared as I thought I was. I was sitting in the living room with a lot of my closest friends in the world, who I love very dearly, and if you guys are watching this, love you very much. I hope you don't think this is weird. None of them play fighting games the way I do, especially not to the extent that I do. But regardless, I ended up losing literally every single match I played. I won one match that entire night, and I was playing my main character, and one of my friends was playing a character they had like never touched before because their girlfriend was like, play that dude, he looks interesting, and he was like, okay. So yeah, my pride was very, very hurt, especially as someone who has dedicated so much to this stuff and that, you know, wanted to have this YouTube channel. I took it really hard. I bottled it up though, because I think this time in particular, it was less anger and more straight up defeat. So once everyone had left and it was just me and my girlfriend, I broke down and I cried a lot. And I was able to express in a way that I hadn't really done in words the exact type of worthlessness that I was feeling. It felt like no matter how much effort I was willing to put into these video games, how much I was trying to get good, work on the little details and study up and do everything that I've talked about in this video, I could never get better. And that's a feeling that I've had ever since I was a kid. Like, I started learning guitar, and I remember practicing the shit out of guitar and never being where I wanted to be and constantly feeling like shit because of it. She gave me a lot of very wise words that night, and a lot of them I'm going to be sharing with you momentarily. I took a day off, and the next day I climbed all the way from where I was to Master Rank, riding the biggest hot streak I have ever been on in my entire life. Feeling angry or disappointed in yourself as a result of video games isn't in and of itself wrong. We so often hear that it's just a video game, so there's no need to be upset. But anything that someone puts a lot of passion and time into is going to feel like more than a game to them. We get genuinely angry because we genuinely care. You can let yourself feel those feelings, but it's also important to learn to let them go. You can't let those feelings out on your loved ones, including yourself, in any way that is potentially damaging to them or your relationship with them or the environment around you. And honestly, the beauty of fighting games is that every single round is a new start. You never know when you're going to be on top of your game and when you're not. And when you're not, it's going to feel like shit, and it's probably going to be a little less fun. But there's a lot you can learn from those times, and the more fun you're able to have while you're getting your ass beat, the better you'll find yourself getting. Your goal should always be simply to be the best player you can be right now. Have confidence in the effort you've put in and what you've learned, and in your ability to continue to grow and continue to learn and to get better. Try not to focus so much on a particular goal you have in mind, because the harder and more desperately you reach for that expectation for yourself, the more difficult it is going to be to achieve. I proved to myself the day that I got Master that I was already at the level of play that I really wanted to be at, but the pressure of wanting to be the best in the room or wanting to be the Master Rank player was holding me back. And ever since I came to that realization, I've never been more than mildly annoyed with losing and I've never had so much fun the whole time I'm playing the game. So, my final tip is this. You're at your best when you're having fun, so have some goddamn fun, stop trying so goddamn hard, and find what it is that makes improving at the game fun for you. Well, I hope this video was helpful to someone out there. That last bit is something I wish I'd heard a long ass time ago. If you made it all the way to the end, I appreciate you very, very, very much. Please leave a like and a comment and subscribe to the channel. Astute viewers may notice that I have another video on my channel. It's from a year ago. I wanted to make a YouTube channel and I was way into Pokemon Nuzlocking at the time, so I made a Pokemon Nuzlocke video. If you're into that sort of thing, go check it out. But this is something I'm a lot more passionate about. I really just wanted to get to a point where I was more confident in my abilities in the game, so I could talk about this stuff and not feel like a total dipshit. You can expect to see a lot more from me in the future, and not just about fighting games. I plan to cover all sorts of things that I'm really interested in, particularly the upcoming live-action Avatar show. I know for a fact that I'm gonna have a lot of shit to say about that. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!
We await your return, warrior.